fifth time is the charm. Hey friends, it's your good friend Tim Campbell Smith, and today we are talking about movies that wouldn't exist if the main character had gone to therapy. I must confess, I heard this concept years ago, I forget where, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I'm not the biggest Star Wars nerd. I've enjoyed all the films, but I originally heard it about Star Wars, that like all of the villains wouldn't exist. Star Wars, the franchise, wouldn't exist if the villains had gone to therapy. I think that's hilarious. As a social work student, I'm going to approach this from a social work perspective as kind of like, I don't want to call it an armchair therapist, but like an armchair therapist, looking at not just the person, but like their environment and their life and what's led to that. And so in this video, we're going to talk about the movie, the character, why I think they would benefit from therapy, and what I might be curious about with their therapy experience, or what they may want to focus on. I will also give you the spoiler alert. It's mainly going to be men because, plot twist, patriarchy is very real and does not involve horses, and power systems are very real and harm people in very real ways in life. So it's going to be a lot of that. I will also say I'm going to avoid what I think are really obvious movies, or any movies that already have a therapist character in them. So like, we're not talking about Kill Bill, The Butterfly Effect, Silver Linings Playbook, No Reservations, because it's either too obvious or there's already a therapist character. Before we go too far, make sure you like and subscribe for all things mental health, higher ed, business, photography, I don't know, life. So, in no particular order, because I just wrote these all over the place, let's dive in to the movies. Please note, I picked a whole range of movies. This video was filmed at the end of 2024, so I kind of only have access to movies up to 2024. I picked a couple from 2024, a couple from 2023, and then a bunch all over the place. Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, or Beetlejuice 2. I want everybody in this movie to go to therapy, but more specifically, I want Lydia and Astrid to go to therapy for processing and handling the death of Richard. I'm also going to say this, I think, and I want to get this name right, so I'm consulting my notes. Dolores Lefevre, Beetlejuice's ex-wife, for anger and revenge for being wronged. I don't know if that would involve couples therapy. I don't know if that would be individual therapy just for Dolores, but I think she would benefit from going to therapy. I'd be curious about her ambition, Beetlejuice's ambitions, quite frankly, where that stems from, and then how to handle that ambition, how to handle disappointment. Disappointment can manifest into anger and rage, and we kind of see that in Dolores, so I'd be curious about that. Next, let's talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. Here's why I want Deadpool to go to therapy, and it's not for an obvious reason, and you gotta know, when I talked to a couple people about this, they were like, that's the stance you're gonna take? But hear me out. I want Deadpool to go to therapy to explore this need for a friend group, for confirmation, for acceptance from the Avengers, because that's kind of what sets us all off in Deadpool and Wolverine, is like wanting to be an Avenger. Why does he need that external validation? Why does he feel the need to be part of that in-group? And I only call that out because the movie is self-aware that it is a movie, and where Deadpool, he's self-aware of where he exists in the Marvel universe, in the movie universe. So I feel like I can call that out. I would encourage Deadpool to be curious about loving himself, doing what's right for himself first, and his own internal sense of satisfaction before trying to experience satisfaction and acceptance from that group and from the Avengers. I want to say, like, stay in your lane, do what you're good at. Next, I want to talk about Fight Club, and I'm going to start by saying Fight Club was one of the first and earliest movies to tackle head-on schizophrenia, and they had a lot to do. That said, what I actually want to call out for Edward Norton's character, as the narrator, as the main character, is to find a better outlet than violence. And the reason why I call that out is, one, it's fascinating how men turn to violence In a job that I have where I do research and I look into research, I've been finding a lot of men who perpetuate violence, and particularly domestic or intimate partner violence, do so because they don't know how to process and handle their emotions, and they need some kind of outlet. I'm not really here to say any one outlet is inherently good or bad. Outlets and behaviors become problems when they become destructive or harmful to your life. It impacts his job, it impacts Edward Norton's character's ability to do his job, but then it also encourages other men to do this, and this outlet disrupts their lives. So I would actually just encourage, in Fight Club, Edward Norton's character to go to therapy, to simply find, and this is totally based off what we see in the movie, to simply find another outlet. Next movie, let's talk about Catch Me If You Can, before Anna Delvey was popular, because I think this was the first character to really popularize mass scams and fraud. I think this movie highlights how poverty and how household breakdown and an unstable home in childhood can have very serious consequences in adulthood. I am so curious about Leonardo DiCaprio's character's need for stuff, money, sex, experiences. Why does he need that to feel good? Oftentimes, if we're trying to fill a void, we're trying to fill a gap, it's because something is missing there. And I know my experience has been, and what I've heard from some other guys, is that it's a sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, and joy. So I wonder what hole he's trying to fill.
There's a joke in there. I'll let you find it on your own.
And what gap is missing in his life psychosocially that could be met, and that doesn't need to be met through crime. Next, and this one's going to be really unpopular, but I have a lot to say about this, Batman. And I mean every Batman movie ever. Batman, Bruce Wayne, I don't want to say needs to go to therapy, but I think Bruce Wayne needs to go to therapy. I mean, let's just start with the facts. A billionaire trust fund man decides, instead of not sharing his money, instead decides to put on a costume and choose violence to fight people. As a social work student, I constantly see how the movement of money impacts people's very daily and regular lives. If you have that much money, a big part of what makes Batman, is how much money he has. Why aren't you moving money to end systemic barriers and systemic causes of crime? Joker was mocked and made fun of because he wasn't provided psychosocial supports and a community. A good community program and access to counseling services would mean that Batman wouldn't have had that villain to handle. That's just one example of how moving money would have solved problems that didn't involve Batman choosing violence. Because so much of what makes Batman popular is that notoriety, I'm curious about his need and his desire and his drive for notoriety. Need for violence and fighting that then causes other internal conflicts. Batman. Every Batman movie ever. And I say that as Batman is my favorite superhero. But I also think every single version of Batman would benefit from therapy. Next, lucky number Slevin. Again, that need for revenge. What is revenge? It's unfiltered and unprocessed anger. What is anger? It's a truth setter. It's a boundary reminder. It's a boundary setter. So, lucky number Slevin, it's all about revenge. The Prestige. Again, all about revenge. Are you seeing the theme here with men? Guys, if you feel you need to get back at someone, maybe that's a sign. Moving on to other films. Sherlock Holmes. But again, kind of for a different reason, like Fight Club. This is a man who cannot slow down and who does not know how to stop. So I worry about the need to keep going. I do wonder about ADHD, which I don't know the history of that diagnosis. It probably wasn't around in England in that time, but I wonder about undiagnosed ADHD and more specifically outlets for ADHD and how he would handle that. And please note, ADHD is a superpower. It grants people ability to have many different thoughts and to think through many different things and to think a little bit faster than others, which I think in the brain economy, that's really helpful. But it would be helpful to also find an outlet. The other thing that I'm curious about, and I think therapy could help tackle, is an inherent distrust in the world. Sherlock Holmes doesn't trust nobody in no situation. But humans, we're pack animals. We're meant to be together. So we can't afford as a species to not trust each other, at least on some level, at least in groups. So I'm also curious about his distrust in others. And I would encourage him to be curious about his distrust in others. I would say, find a hobby, find an outlet, ideally one that's communal. Join a dodgeball team. Sherlock Holmes will be fine. Next. And this one might get me in trouble. And I truly approach this, as a social work student who looks at systems of power, The Blind Side. And more specifically, Leanne Toohey. Leanne Toohey, who discovers this young man who becomes a very famous football player and brings him into his home. I would invite Leanne Toohey to be curious about her hero complex. So there's this idea that people have a hero complex or a hero need where they try to be the hero of situations. It's the kind of person who tries to always solve a problem, where you say, like, I'm feeling sad, and they go, why are you feeling sad? How can I help? Here's some chocolate. They try to be the hero of the situation. And that can be really harmful to the other person and to, the person who has that hero complex, in this case, Leanne Toohey. Why does she feel the need to be a hero? And not just that, I want to add in layers of like race and privilege and power. I would invite her to be curious about white savior complex and systems of racism and power, because this is a case, I think, where it puts a lot of tension on her life and her family's life. Why does she feel the need to swoop in and be the hero? And we see in the movie that she has some interesting relationships with her friends and family, and I think that's worth being curious about and investigating as well. The final movie that I think wouldn't exist if the main character had gone to therapy, The Holdovers. I'm going to start by saying I did not think this movie was as good as everybody else made it out to be, but I digress. I kind of come at this, especially as someone who has teaching experience and has taught. I just want to ask, why is he so tough? Why is he so hard? Why is he so guarded? And I think this actually stems from, and this is where I think it would be worth exploring in therapy, is his professional life and how his career has impacted his life for better and for worse, about finishing his own education, which I hope isn't too much of a spoiler, and his thoughts on education and why he thinks education should be the way it is. I think it would be worth him being curious about that and how that impacts him, because that may make him not only a better teacher, but I think just a little more relaxed of a human who enjoys life a little more. Overall, I worry about Paul Giamatti's character in The Holdovers as I worry about his life satisfaction, and I would invite him to be curious about what leads to a satisfying life and what it takes to achieve a satisfying life, which again is also a common theme for a lot of men in a lot of these movies. We'll stop there. I could keep going. I might do next TV series that wouldn't exist if the main character went to therapy, but there's a few common themes: men, revenge, life satisfaction, but we could keep going. Again, I always just, something I've learned from therapy, I'm learning in school, is why do we pursue the things that we pursue? And is that helpful? Is that what would bring us the most joy? Things like revenge. Comment and let me know, what are other movies or TV shows you think wouldn't exist if the main character had gone to therapy. I'm so curious other people's thoughts. As always, make sure you like and subscribe for all things mental health, business, photography, and life. And otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye for now.